All right. Welcome, everybody, back to part 4 of our live chat. I'm just going to wait for everybody to jump in before we get started. All right. Okay. So, to get us started tonight, anybody that's joining us for the first time, I'm Nick Belisi. I am the author of The Souls of Paradise and also Paradise Reborn. Our Thursday night live chats, basically what we do is we go through the different chapters of the book. We're working on book 1 right now, and we go over it and talk about Easter eggs and stuff like that and how I came up with the concepts as far as the book goes, where the ideas came from and everything like that. So, to get us started, we're going to talk about Chapter 6, and Chapter 6 is called My Father's Keeper. Now, in this chapter, what happens is, basically as an outline, Stella finds a locket in her pocket because she just came back from that dreamlike state that we talked about last week. And she finds that the locket that she had found in that state was, still in her pocket. So she ran home. She was all freaked out and stuff. So she runs home. She finds her dad passed out, drunk on the floor. And then she's talking about her relationship with her father and stuff, and how, she's constantly taking care of him when he's in this state and stuff. So she makes her way upstairs. And when she gets upstairs, she goes into her sister's room, to where she finds a notebook that the locket happened to fit in, and she uses it almost as a key to open it up. She reads about it, realizes there was a lot more going on in her sister's life than she had initially anticipated or knew about, and then kind of wonders why her sister didn't confide in her enough to talk about those things. So then she comes up with the idea, after reading it, to go visit her sister's ex-boyfriend at the high school named Patrick. And then it leaves off with that thought. So, Chapter 6, basically, I came up with the name for the title, My Father's Keeper, because it's essentially talking about Stella's relationship within the household and how she is, taking care of her dad and, the nightly things she has to deal with and stuff like that. And, in the situation where she comes home, when she comes home, she finds her dad passed out drunk on the floor because he had got a piece of junk mail and it had her sister's name on it. So that kind of set her dad over the edge. Now, the reason why I came up with that and stuff like that is because when I was going through my own split up with my child's mother, that's how, I was feeling at the time. I would just pass out all the time, I would overdrink and stuff, and I just became a mess. And I was paying, I guess I got it from personal experiences, I guess you could put it that way, and that's how it made it actually into the physical book. Now, there's a passage in here that I wanted to read, and it's on page 45, paragraph 2. So while I get to that, okay. So in that, it's Stella, it's coming from her actual perspective. So she's saying, like a true spoken alcoholic, Dad would try to convince himself and me that he didn't have a problem. He would justify himself as not doing it all the time, and even saying that he would only drink beer. All these bargaining tactics always resulted in the same way. Dad would find himself drowning in a bottle on a pretty regular basis. He wasn't an abusive drunk. He was just sloppy and over time's bearing. A drunk night around Dad would start out fine, but would ultimately end in crying or falling all over himself. It was one of the saddest things to watch, because for someone you revere so highly, they became so pathetic right before your eyes. Basically watching a mountain of a man turn into mush in just a few hours with each drink he took severely took a toll on me. It was truly the epitome of watching an angel fall. And, basically what I was talking about in that and stuff was my own drinking habits and stuff. And so I was talking about my own drinking habits and stuff, and what was going on in it is that, in the past, when I was going through my divorce and stuff like that, I would find myself doing the same thing. I would find myself, looking at old pictures and reminiscing and stuff, and then just like it would always turn out the same. I would start out strong. I would be, happy and laughing and stuff like that while I was drinking, and then it would turn into just like a crying shit show, basically. And it was like that for a very long time, until I changed my life around and got that fixed up. But it was a tough time in my life, constantly reminiscing on things, because like I'm a habitual person of like overreading things. So like I would overread journals, or like I would romanticize about relationships that really weren't that good, and sit there and constantly beat myself up saying that I wish I had this person back and stuff like that, even though I knew like it wasn't good. So that's where I got the idea for that, and I put that in the book. And like I said, I've said this numerous times over the chats and stuff like that. Each character is like a different variation of myself at different stages in my life. So, this is just Thomas's drinking, and the way he acted and stuff like that is, exactly where, he is in life. And that's where I was in life. And, it was like a big fear of mine for a long time that if I didn't get the things correct in my life and stuff like that, then, then I would turn inevitably into that person, like a sad person, like living with regret and stuff like that. And then, that's not something that you want to live like, and you can't be successful. And then if you're setting an example, obviously for your children, that's not a good example to set. So, at some point you need to just like dig your feet in and say like, enough is enough. It's time to grow up. Now, another passage from this chapter on page 55 that I wanted to read. So Stella's talking about basically how she perceives love and stuff like that. And, I wanted to read it so I can go a little deeper into it. She's come up with the idea at this point that she's going to go meet up with Patrick, and she is just talking about, like, she didn't understand how Cecile idolized him so much. So she talks and says, I guess it doesn't matter anymore, because regardless of how you perceive it, everything comes to an end. The fairy tale of the white picket fence and everlasting love is all but done. It's a faraway dream that most people spend their entire lives reaching for. It's only a select few that even get a slice of that heaven, and most of the time if you get that bliss, it inevitably comes crashing down into a messy situation. Love is one of those things that is invaluable, but you can never hold it in your hand. A perfect concoction of unstable emotions balled up and labeled as true love. The pinnacle love story we all strive for. In reality, we should just be at peace with someone being loyal in today's day and age. Realistically, the best feeling in the world is loving someone and being loved in return. No strings attached or ulterior motives, just a general want to be in your presence. Someone who looks forward to seeing you every day and misses you when they leave. The first thought on your mind at dawn and the last thought at dusk. It's so unfortunate that society has made it so easy to split up, because the saying better for worse would actually hold weight. Who am I to say, though? My true love broke my heart and left me all alone, playing into the hand of society, how they set up as a new norm. My whole world around me yearned for appreciation and validation, so why was it so hard to come by? If everyone wanted the same thing, when does temptation of something potentially better outweigh the comfort of what you have? No matter what way you spin it, none of it makes sense. I was always a hopeless romantic, despite what you would see on my rigid exterior. I always dreamed that I would fall in love and things would fit into place like a puzzle. See, love is easy to come by, but making it last is the hard part. If I could love someone for who they are despite their faults, then why couldn't I have it in return? My eyes rolling over my scars, thinking how could someone even love me if I clearly didn't love myself? These scars are like labels, in the same way that track marks signify a drug problem. How was I ever going to explain the state of mind I fell into on a pretty regular basis to someone? I have no problem with being alone, since I have enough on my plate as it is, but every once in a blue moon like tonight, I yearn for the feeling of creature comfort. Now, the reason why I wanted to read that is because that's how I felt most of my life when it came to like a relationship and stuff like that, because especially like we talk about on the healing chats on Tuesdays and stuff like that, it's kind of hard to explain to somebody that you have BPD, because typically when they hear that you have it, they kind of go off the rails and they're just like, well, like, yeah, I probably should run from him. But the reality is, it's not all that's cracked up to be, especially if you get help for it. I mean, obviously, if you don't get help for it, that's a whole different situation. But, in the case like I'm in, I always thought those same things, because everybody likes the feeling of coming home and having that somebody to have that creature comfort with, to, know that they care about you and genuinely hear how your day went, and, just basically be there for you. So, I wrote about that I always felt, because in my last relationship and stuff, I thought, you're sitting there and you're talking about you want to be with somebody, and you're planning situations to get married and stuff like that, but like, any slight hiccup in the relationship, the way society is now, it's so easy for most people just to jump on and find the next best thing. And where does that end? You know what I mean? Where does the commitment of being together for life, through better or for worse, like, where does it end? It seems like, the divorce rate seems so much higher than the actual marriage rate. And, you're blowing through relationships after relationship, and, it's tough. It's really tough. So I wanted to put that in there because, obviously Stella is a version of myself. So I'm just talking about that because I've always felt that way. I severely regretted the fact that, I'm a commitment person. Like, I'm big into, like, if I'm going to date somebody, I stick with them, like, through a lot, and probably more than I absolutely should. But, that's who I am as a person. I just never got that respect in return. So, and things like with my scars and stuff like that from my earlier days of my borderline and stuff, it's tough to explain that to somebody when they first see it. They're kind of just like, whoa, like, what is that? Then you kind of have to go into it, and, some people are understanding about it. Some people are not. I guess that's anything in life. You're going to come across people that want to get to know you or don't want to get to know you. But, the common courtesy in the world and stuff like that is, like, we're at, like, such a terrible place. You could be talking to somebody. You're basically forced in most situations to use online dating and stuff like that. And even when you're doing that, the common trend is people ghosting you. Like, they don't even give you the respect to tell you, like, hey, I'm not interested, or, it's not working out or something. Like, you just stop hearing from people. And it's honestly, it's pathetic. So, that's why I stopped doing it. It's, I'm content with being alone, as I read in the book and stuff. And that's just that toxic arena of being in that. If it's meant to be, I'm a huge believer on, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I'm not in a rush. I'm not anything like that. So if it does happen, it happens. But that's basically right there, chapter 6, and how I came up with the, ideas for it and stuff. So we'll move on to chapter 7 at this point. And chapter 7 is called You Deserve a Life. Now, in this, Stella is just come up with the idea that she was going to go see Patrick the next day. So she's sitting on her bed, and she knows she needs to go to sleep, but she can't fall asleep. Just so happens that her ex, Charlie, winds up texting her, asking if he can come over, and she sneaks him over. Now, they wind up hooking up in the book, and it's interrupted. Well, they get done hooking up, but, like, it's kind of interrupted their meet because her dad comes barreling up the stairs drunk, and then he collapses in Stella's room. So she sneaks Charlie out at that point, and she basically, like, puts a pillow under her head and a little blanket for her dad, and then, lets him sleep on the floor because this is something she's, like, not unfamiliar with. It's happened numerous times. And the title came from You Deserve a Life is because a passage of what Charlie says in it, and, after he sees her father collapse on the floor and stuff, he's telling her, like, this isn't your life. You're still young. You're so young in your 20s and whatnot. You shouldn't be taking care of your dad because he can't get his shit together. And, you deserve, after everything that's happening in your life, to go out and be somebody. You're not your father's keeper. You're not that person. It's not your job. There's no reason why he can't get himself straight and figure it out. And, that was a big theme in this, which we'll get to in a second. But to keep it going, Stella talks about, in one of the passages of the book, that she wished it was raining because it would soothe her to sleep. And that was a big thing for me. Me and my own personal mother never got along, really. But when I was younger, I would go there and stuff like that. And I always had, like, I guess you could say anxiety and stuff like that about falling asleep. But I always found comfort that my bed in her house at the time was near a window, so when it would rain and stuff like that, somehow or another, like, that was soothing for me. And even to this day still is. If I have trouble sleeping, I'll put on rain sounds on YouTube or something, and it seems to help. So I wanted to make that nod in there as far as that goes. Now, with Charlie texting Stella, that's actually similar to something that happened in my own personal life. And it was, I had dated somebody for most of high school, and I actually wound up getting married to her. But, we kind of went through the ups and downs. We broke up a whole bunch of times and stuff. And then I actually went off to the military, and she came to see me on my boot camp graduation, with my dad and my friend. And, she'd asked me if we want to get back together. But at the time, I just started my military career, and I was in Great Lakes outside of Chicago. And, it wasn't the right time. I didn't know where my life was going to go or anything like that. So I wasn't going to commit to anything like that. Now, you do get leave when you're in the military. And what wound up happening was, just as an odd coincidence, I had come home. It was like winter time, and I had been drinking and stuff, and I basically did like a drunk dial, and she wound up coming over, and then, one thing led to another, and then I was basically back into the swings of it again. And then shortly thereafter, a couple months later, I had moved to California with the Navy, and she had come out there to visit because nobody was really visiting me out there. I was feeling the loneliness of being in the service and away from everything, going from New Jersey all the way to California. So she came out to visit me, and then it just seemed like a good idea. So she moved out there, and, we wound up getting, married, but it didn't last very long. I mean, we were together on and off for 7 years, but our marriage only lasted, I think, like from November until about Easter. So it wasn't super, super long. But that's where, I came up with that idea about Charlie coming over and stuff like that, and then kind of like getting back into Stella's life. It's a little bit different, you know what I mean? Because if you read the book, Charlie doesn't really stick around. He's got his own things going. As he explains to Stella in this chapter, he's going to be going to New York City for photography school. So, and Stella feels the need that she can't leave her father, so she doesn't want to go along with him. But she's happy for him and wants him to do good in life and stuff, and, that's how you should be. Not everything works out the way you want it to, but as long as you're still supporting that person, and you're happy, because hate is baggage. I mean, life's too short to carry it around all the time. So, you want the best for everybody. So in that, when Charlie does come over the house, Stella winds up sneaking him into the house. And the way I came up with this is, me and my little brother Josh, we had a big thing when we lived at my dad's house with, we used to always sneak girls over. Like that was like a big thing that we used to do, or friends, or whatever the case may be. So we would put like milk crates outside of the window. And my dad still talks about this all the time. He always jokes about it. Like, oh, you guys thought you were slick, but like you really weren't that slick. You guys were loud in the house. Like I could hear you. And, it was pretty obvious to see like the milk crates and stuff outside the window. But, when you're younger and stuff, you're not really thinking about that. You're just like, oh, I got away with it because I didn't get in trouble. But, we used to do that all the time. And one of the funny things is a buddy of mine from when I was growing up, he lived with me for a while at my dad's house because he had a falling out with his mom. And we had our system. He would go do his job during the day. I would go work at Domino's at the time, and we'd make money. And, we'd hang out with like a group of girls and stuff. So what would wind up happening is we'd meet back up at my dad's house, and usually be like nighttime. I would go in first, and I would go and talk to like my dad and stuff. And, I'd go to my room, I'd open the window, and then I'd go back out there and talk to him while my buddy was just hoisting people up through the window. And then, we would party, hang out, whatever the case may be. Or like me and him, our big thing is we would like play CeeLo and gamble and, do all that fun stuff you do when you're a kid. So I wanted to put that in there because, those were some of the simpler times in my life that were just happy. And, you thought you were like king because you had no responsibilities, and, you were getting away with stupid things. So that's why I put that part into the book. Now, the last part that I was going to talk about with this is Thomas's drinking. When he goes into Stella's room, and he collapses on the floor, and, she's just so accustomed to it and stuff like that. It's a toxic thing, but writing it and seeing it written on paper, I was expressing my own fears. And my fears at the time were because when I was going through a breakup with my kid's mom, at that point in time, I was never like a everyday kind of drinker. It was more of a, The weekend came along, and that's when it happened. So at that time, I think I was drinking like 4 times a month. So it was like every Saturday. So what happened was I was drinking a lot. I used to be able to drink like an entire bottle of Jack Daniels in a single night. It wasn't healthy whatsoever. I don't recommend it. But I was never like a violent drunk or anything like that. I was more of like a sloppy drunk, like, singing songs and stuff, and, unfortunately, like falling on the ground, drooling, and just being a shit show. And when I wrote that on paper as like a nod to what was going on in my life at the time, it prompted me at that point. I was like, well, wow, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Like, what kind of example am I setting for my daughter? Like, if I don't stop doing this and get my life together, I mean, I'm essentially writing down what my future is. I'm writing down, and I'm writing down what things were happening, and it was tough. It was really tough. It was tough to stand up because I was so depressed because of the court proceedings and stuff. It was so tough to stand up and be like, I gotta stop. Like, this is really gonna either kill me or, it's gonna like ruin her. Because I wasn't like one to drink around her. Like, I always kept my family life and everything separate, except when I was in the relationship with her mother. Then, we all lived together, so it was a little different. But, I kept that part of my life separate for the most part. But I knew that eventually it would bleed through. I knew, because I was using it as a crutch with my depression and stuff like that, that eventually, it was eventually going to turn into that. And it's not what I wanted for her. I didn't want her to grow up that way and see me that way. And, being upset all the time and stuff, it's just not something ideal. There's a lot of like alcoholics in my family and stuff like that. And, it's not to say that I'm not one of them, but, it's not a future that I foresaw. So, I fixed things and stuff and, got my life together and started doing different things. I keep myself busy because that's the biggest thing, especially with like borderline. It's the boredom. You run into situations when you're bored or, you feel like you don't have a purpose in the moment because nothing's going on. It's essentially, the crutch that I always ran to because it quieted out all the nonsense in my head. And, again, it's not a healthy thing at all. And I'm glad that, I changed around a lot of that and, started doing different things, to stay active and stuff. So it's always good to pick up a hobby. Like I said, if it comes to the weekend or something, and I'm just like, I got nothing going on, I got to stay focused. For me, usually I'll pick like a video game or something, and I'll just be like, this is what I'm going to do this weekend, or things around the house, or, I'll write. Like right now I'm writing the 3rd book, and I just finished, I was telling you guys on Tuesday, I just finished the 2nd chapter. I read it to Stormy after we had gotten off of our last live chat, and she agreed that was a really, really good chapter. It had her laughing at parts and stuff like that too. So it's just a very happy chapter, and it dives into the relationship between Stella and Pete. And if you've been watching us every Thursday, we haven't exactly introduced Pete yet, but it is coming. It's coming very soon, and he plays such a huge role throughout the entire series. So he's a fun character and everything, and when we get to those parts of the Easter eggs and stuff, I'll explain to you guys where I had come up with those ideas. And going forward, I forgot to mention it last Tuesday, but I wanted to thank all you guys for all the support when it came to the followers and stuff like that. And it's just unbelievable, the fact that we got 10,000 followers, and I never would have guessed. I never would have guessed it would have come to this, but I'm so unbelievably grateful for it. I'm doing a lot of things to keep you guys apprised before I let you go. Right now, I am working on getting my books in the local library. I have to get a couple more copies and stuff like that, so that way I can give them to the library, and they're going to, they're going to check them out and stuff like that, and they're going to let me know if it's something that they want to put on their shelves and stuff. I'm also going to a couple independent bookstores and stuff to, promote it as well. With that being said, I was talking to a potential investor earlier too, and he was talking about potentially putting out some money to get the book spread out there and stuff like that into more areas through legitimate promotions and stuff. So, we'll see what goes on with that. I need to start coming up with a business plan and such, but, it's something. Also, I have been reaching out to other content creators, specifically ones that deal with like mental health issues and stuff like that, so that way we can get more guests to jump onto our Tuesday healing, because we just finished all the borderline stuff on Tuesday. So this upcoming Tuesday, Stormy and I were discussing it. I think what we're going to do is, so you have a roadmap of what's going on. Next Tuesday, we're going to jump on, we're going to talk about anxiety and depression. The following Tuesday, we're going to talk about narcissism and gaslighting. So, big subjects, and, a lot of people go through anxiety and depression. So if it's something that you're interested in jumping on and talking with us about, whether it be about your personal experiences or about, how you feel about the subject, or maybe someone that's affected you that does have it, I invite you, as always, to reach out and stuff, and, we can accommodate that. Like I said, I want to be able to make them as informative as possible and give them from different perspectives, so that way anyone that's watching that's maybe afraid to come forward and stuff like that and talk about their issues, because it's not simple, to bring light of the things that are going wrong in your life. So, to be able to have that different perspective. So I talk about, when we did our borderline stuff, I talked about someone who has it, and then Stormy would jump in and talk from a loved one's perspective about what it's like to deal with somebody who has it, and how to overcome roadblocks and set up, successful tactics in talking them basically off of a ledge. And it's very helpful. I mean, like I said, I tell you guys every time, I've had a good handful of people reach out to me and stuff and say that they've enjoyed it, and, it gave a lot of closure to them or someone that they knew as to why it was happening. And, I want to keep giving back on that. But it's also a learning experience for me too. I've known Stormy for 6 years, and, someone close to her has autism and stuff like that, and she's going to start prepping to talk about autism to bring awareness to it. And I don't know everything. I don't even want to pretend like I'm even somewhat of a professional with autism and stuff. I only know from being friends with Stormy, realistically, but, I'm going to be learning as well as she's doing that. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's a great thing for everybody to pick up on, because, it is something that is very common. And, you want to be able, like I said, to give everybody the love and respect. And how can you do that if you don't know anything about it? So she's going to be working on that. And as she gets closer to getting that done, I'll definitely post up something letting you guys know when that's going to be. And it's definitely going to be something worth watching. You guys jump on and check that out. So for next Tuesday, like I said, we're going to be going with anxiety and depression. So I hope that you guys join us. I'm really grateful for those of you who have joined me tonight. As I always say, if you have not checked out the books and this is your first time hearing about them, they are on Amazon. You can certainly buy the Kindle version for 99 cents. Get them checked out. I also invite creators. I've been talking to 2 of them right now, so we're trying to do scheduling, to jump on and talk about your own books. Come on and let's have a discussion. Let's get your book out there as well, and talk about what's going on with you. You help me, I help you kind of deal, but we also help each other as authors with book talk. So if that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to jump on and let me know, direct message me or Stormy, and we will absolutely accommodate that. Now, with that being said, I am looking forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our Tuesday Night Healing Part 5. I can't believe we've been doing this for a month already, and, I'm looking forward to doing a lot more with you guys. So that's all I have for tonight. I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and I will be seeing you on Tuesday.